Okay, so I mentioned that there were two tasks or two things I wanted you to be able to address in the breakout room. The first one deals with licensing, the first topic of today's discussion, and the second one deals with learning trees. And hopefully, you had a little bit of time in order to be able to play with the learning trees, and now that you're fueled up and a little bit rested in order to be able to address it, you can start bouncing into that aspect. Like I mentioned before, the biggest issue with learning trees is not to actually create the learning tree, it's to understand how which questions and which expositions you want to have organized around that learning tree. And it requires a little bit of subject matter expertise in order to do that. That is typically beyond what an average student is able to do, although many students can do this if you use students in your open pedagogy projects. So um, let me just talk about the learning trees, and this addresses the question that came up by Martin and also by Mohammed here, and that's how students interact with the trees. So in this case here, I didn't really flesh out this tree because I didn't want to continue the same process, but I showed you the aspect of adding an empty node and adding a question to the node in order to address what you're doing. I want to actually add a actually, I'm just going to go into my new course area, and I'm going to add a new assignment, and it has the same mode, but I'm going to call it new tree. I don't care about
We are
that.
not seeing anything.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Yes.
Um, I like to believe someday that I will master Zoom, but I have a feeling I won't. So now I can't see where everybody is in this new version. Okay, so as I was saying, I want to build an assignment for of trees, an orchard, let's say. So I'm going to make an assignment and keep it set up like that. I'm going to make this homework, external performance, specific the number. Okay, that's fine. And then I'm clicking learning tree as the option. So it comes up with a few additional features here that's connected to learning tree assessments that you didn't have for delayed or real time. And we have a cute little Christmas tree here if you feel nostalgic over Christmases past. So, anyways, so you can decide again what the requirements are to be successful on a node. And again, there are two nodes. There's an exposition node, and then there is um, assessment node. And the assessment node is just basically any question that you can put into that place there. An exposition node, you need to create a new exposition typically because we don't have a lot of exposition questions, exposition entries in our database, probably about 100 or so. So anyways, I'm going to say that I want the student to spend, 2 minutes per exposition node. And that means that they have to spend 2 minutes in order to be successful, in order to be able to move on in the trend that's there. Uh, um, so this one right here is if you have a question, an assessment question, do you want, and that assessment question is designed to be algorithmic, do you want it to change every time the student does that assessment and gets it wrong? Or do you want to keep it the same? And it depends upon how you actually formulate that. I'm just going to keep it on yes. The number of accessible paths, that's the number of, uh, actually, I accidentally moved. That's the number of paths that's necessary to go from the top to the bottom in order to be able to earn the do-over. So the do-over is the incentive. That's the carrot in order to get students into using the learning tree in the way that we want to be able to do. So I typically just do one and give them the opportunity in order to go in the pathway that they want. And this tells you the number of times that, oh, this is just the next basis off of here that doesn't apply. So I'm going to um, create this thing, the number of allowed point penalty. Where are we here? Just gonna make it 0. Okay, so now I've made a tree learning tree assignment. So only learning trees can go into this learning tree assignment. I cannot create an assignment that's mixture of learning trees and non-learning trees because the nature of how the learning trees operate and the interface is different than a conventional way. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to add a learning tree on here. This really should say add tree, not add questions. And then I put the ID number of the tree that I want to be able to take a look at. So I'm going to browse the learning trees and say, I want to deal with, let me see if I like this one. That's a straightforward, that's a linear learning tree. I want something a little bit more complex, like this one. So this is number 49. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste this here. I'm going to get the learning tree. And then I'm able to look at the learning tree and say, yes, this is the one that I want. And then I add the learning tree. And now it's added to my assignment. And there it is. So I can add as many learning trees as I want to this assignment that already pre-exist. If I happen to be creating them, I can go into my learning tree area instead of the general learning tree pool. This is something that Mohammed probably explored with otherwise. And it just basically says, this is the learning tree, this is the ID, the number of points that we have, and the standard action items that you have for any other question that you put in place. And again, you can look at the learning tree and it pulls up the learning tree that's off of here. If we have assessments that were updated in the learning tree, basically, remember I was talking about yesterday where I said that if you use a question and then someone else has updated that question for some reason or another, expanded the solution, modified the text, the same you need to update it manually. The same thing applies if it's an assessment in a tree, just like if it were an individual one. And that's where this warning comes in here saying that this one here is that. I'm just going to click this update, which just basically brings it together. It's not that big of a deal, but it's just part of how we operate collectively. Okay, so here is the learning tree. It's a single learning tree. It doesn't look any different than a single question with only one little option, which is this enter the learning tree button. Let's look at this from a student's perspective, not from an instructor perspective. So in the upper right-hand corner, we have this toggle switch. This is instructor view. We can click on that and flip over, and now this is what the students will see, with the exception of this bar here saying that I'm a fake student, which would probably be pretty uh, bad to tell a student if they come in here. So here's a student. Here's the thing: they come in and they plug in a number. So I'm going to assume that's the incorrect number. I'm going to complete the submission. This is just a stepwise in order to make sure it's right. It comes back as expected and says, I got it incorrect. I got 0 points off of it. I got 0% off of it. It did not work. I have the option to go into the learning tree. I can also cancel here and go into the learning tree right there. So now I can click on here, and this is how the student comes in. It says, here is the learning tree. Now, instead of having it color-coded red and green in order to represent the different types of node, it's just basically red to represent this. These are nodes that have not been successful. That includes the top. Now, we're going to ignore the top because you're not going to be able to do the question again. You need to go to the next question that comes in. So then this right here, you click on this thing and it's a strategy map. Now I'm supposed to be spending 2 minutes reading this map, but we have a shortcut here because I'm a fake student, and for testing and looking at it, it's only 5 seconds, just to make sure that we don't waste our time sitting here. So you read over that and you make it work. I again will point out the attribution button that we have on every single question exposition that's put down in order to be able to put that there. So I've been successful at this question. If I close this thing, this one now turns to green, which means that I have been successful. Now I have the ability to go to the next one. I can either go down this route or I can go down this route. Hopefully, by looking at the strategy map, I then read the maps and I get an idea about what I think I want to do and the direction that I want to go about doing it, not just the title from the title that we have here. So in this case here is determination of molar mass using ideal gas equation, calculation of density of gas from ideal gas equation. Both of those are skills necessary to master this question that's up here. I can come in here. This is a video. This is a video. And now I'm supposed to be spending 5 minutes watching this video. Now, we can do more sophisticated checks on the video based exposition to identify if they've watched the whole video or watched a percentage of the video and not just give a time frame associated, but we haven't implemented something like that. So I have now sat on this question for the designated amount of time. I is now successful, so it turns to green. And now I have the root, the branch assessment and asking this thing here, what's that? Okay, I need to do some math, but I'm not going to know the answer. So I'm not going to be, okay. So this one here, because I made it algorithmic, let me see if this thing actually, so this is 4940. I'm not sure if this question was designed to be algorithmic. It's not. So if it were algorithmic, this number would change, this number would change, this number would change, this number would change. And it's up to me to be able to change the thing here to reflect it. The key point is to stop people from, or students from, just throwing in numbers in order to see which one just happens to work. This is especially important if your question is multiple choice, because you can just basically da 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 and then off you go. So I don't want to sit down here and solve this question because it would take me a little bit of time. But let's say that I solve this question properly, and I can't see the the number on here because I'm an instructor. Um, but if I were to solve this question properly, this would turn green, and then I'd get a pop-up that says, "You now have earned a do-over. You can come back up and do this question." And then they click on it, they get the question, they're able to now submit a question. Right now they can't because I haven't earned the do-over. And it actually should say something along the lines of that you've used all your submissions instead of just giving you incorrect, but it has the same effect. And then if I get this wrong, that button right there should come up first. If I get this wrong, then I can go in and do it again. Go into the tree and then say, okay, instead of going down this path, I'm going to go down this path and look at this exposition that's necessary in order to be able to advance that. So again, and you move on from there. So that's the way the students interface with it. We will have an option on here. It's not implemented for accessibility. For those of you that are concerned about accessibility, which should be everyone in the room, is to have a button on here that will convert this node system into a table system such that screen readers are able to recognize it and identify how things are connected and moving it forward. It hasn't been implemented because we've been backlogged for a little bit, but that's a way in order to be able to make sure that this intrinsically visual interface that's on the screen right now can be used for students that have accessibility issues. That's off of there. So that's the essence of this. Obviously, the more branches you have here, the more options for students to be able to go down different paths and fill in the holes that they feel that they need in order to be successful at this tree. I will mention that we used to have this, and I'm thinking about bringing it back, what I call a mulligan. A mulligan is when you get this question here, you can decide that you can come in and flip a switch and say, I can't submit. I made a mistake. I want to resubmit again. The way that I solved it here is I just gave 2 times or 2 opportunities to solve this before being able to go into the learning tree, although they can go into the learning tree the first time. So that's the basic essence behind how you interface with the learning tree. So there were a few questions that popped up into the chat. Martin said, do the revisions of the tree happen only in the library? That's actually a good question and something I didn't really recognize off of there. It appears to be that the learning trees um, uh, in the library itself did not get updated automatically, in contrast to what they would be if you updated the question themselves in the library. So we're probably going to have to implement some code here so that the trees themselves will be updated, but we'll set it up so that when you use the tree, it will not be updated in your assignment, because that would interfere with the way that the tree looked like when you decided to use the tree. So the point is, again, not to interfere with your use of the question, in this case, the tree, but still have the community updating aspect that we have. Carlos asked, will we be able to review your notes video on building a tree? Right. Yes, I'm recording this thing. I will upload this thing. I'm going to try to upload it tonight, but there might be a chance it might be tomorrow, depending upon how much sleep I actually need to get in one day. Christine asked, do students get this process readily? Yes. Uh, you just give them one chance for them to take a look at, and then it becomes relatively straightforward. That's because we have a very rigid structure that's just relatively straightforward. They come in, they have one choice of what branch they want to do, and then that's it. And then so it's not multifaceted and a variety of evolution off of it. Second thing is that students have access to the tree, so they see the big picture automatically here. In the past, we were making something that little bit more localized. So when you're on this node, you can go up and go down. But we've discovered that that was just basically too restricting in information, and it was better for them to see the entire map rather than seeing a local structure off of that. So other than that, it's a pretty straightforward approach for doing these things. Carlos asks, I'm assuming that there will be some videos that can be used for student tutorials. Yes, actually, I think there are some videos that were created and maybe linked in the user guide that I posted a few hours ago. If not, there certainly will be soon in order to be able to help people with that. Um, and the recordings are uploaded on YouTube, just like what Jennifer mentioned. If you go to our YouTube channel, and I'm just going to do this right now to give you the playlist for this workshop, this conference of sorts that I've already posted on here. So this is the one. So this is all the discussions actually yesterday, and they'll be expanded in the same playlist. Christine, is the structure always root question and then strategy map and then runs? Yes, that's a structure that we prefer to use. Now, there's nothing that says that you can't build other topologies, but if you want to have other interactions with the topologies because the topology dictates how you use it, the pedagogy behind it, then we have to implement the other pedagogy. And there are other topologies that we've looked at and that we'd like to introduce that would be able to give you similar approaches to what we're doing without the same philosophy behind how we're doing it. Um, April, I mentioned that you can't make a assignment with learning trees and traditional questions. So you have to make an assignment of only learning trees or an assignment of only questions. They can't mix and match because the nature of how they operate, the technology doesn't work very well like that. Okay, it looks like that's it. So most of the time that you're going to be in the breakout room that you're going to be jumping to in a moment, I would like you to try to flesh out a learning tree. Some of that may involve you writing down a learning tree on a piece of paper or trying to discuss, okay, I like this question here. This is a good question for this subcomponent of this question. The best learning trees are learning trees where the root question is a complex question with multiple aspects behind it. Oftentimes taught at the end of a class after you're building a product and then being able to add the various components off of it. The learning trees that are super simple that have only one concept and all you want to do is provide maybe some additional guidance, you can make a linear tree, which is what I mentioned before. And a linear tree is just basically here's the tree, you come in and you have to do this, and you have to do this, and you have to do this, and you have to do this. The students don't have any agency, but they're able to be fed, in this case here, I use the term spoon feed, what they need to do in order to be able to master that. And there are situations where you may want to do something like that in order to be able to cross it out. As long as students understand the concept of a linear tree and a nonlinear tree, which is relatively straightforward, they can use it effectively.